Okay, here we go. Hi, I'm Olivia. I'm the Witch of Wonderlust here on YouTube and on Instagram, and today is a little bit of a different type of video. I'm going to be chatting with you about my personal journey of uncovering my ethnic identity. So my overall goal for this journey, I suppose, is to decolonize myself and my mindset. And also I hope to get a deeper connection with not only myself, but also my ancestors, the people before me who paved the way to allow me to be where I am and who I am today. Some of you might ask, what is decolonization? What does that mean? And I took this from the BC Open Campus website. Decolonization is the process of deconstructing colonial ideologies of the superiority and the privilege of the Western thought and approaches. Decolonization involves valuing and revitalizing Indigenous knowledge and approaches and weeding out Western biases or assumptions that may have impacted Indigenous ways of being. You can read more with the link that I've provided in the description below. So, my intention for making this video about this is to hopefully just spark some curiosity within some of you. To look deeper into your background with just an open mind and just a sense of wondering, and also to kind of reach out to the people that feel the same way I do, to let you know that you're not alone in feeling like you're an outsider in your own culture. Is it because I'm caffeinated or because I'm nervous? So I've always had this need, desire, I guess, to understand more about my roots. I wanted to know more about the Indigenous people that I am descended from. And at 23, I only feel like I'm just now dipping my toe in. I don't feel like I've gotten very far at all. So basically, I'm probably going to be doing like a verbal brain dump on where I am currently. So I'm gonna dive in deeper in my own experience in uncovering what I've uncovered so far and getting to the point that I'm at right now. And if you are experiencing the same things that I have and am experiencing, then I hope that this video makes you feel seen. But yeah, grab yourself a snack, grab yourself a beverage, and hang out for a little bit. So I'm gonna be speaking from my own experiences because that's kind of all I can speak on, and that's not gonna resonate with everybody, and I understand that. We all will have totally different experiences, totally different perspectives, and this topic is so layered with so many moving parts, so many variables, that this conversation could go so deep and in so many different directions for each and every one of you. Yeah, so here we go. So I'm gonna give you a very brief history of my family. For those of you who don't know, I am half Irish and half Filipina. I don't know how long my family on the Irish side has been in the US, but from what I was able to dig up, it was around the 1800s, and if I was to make an educated guess, I would say maybe they came over through Ellis Island. But I don't have any actual solid proof of that yet. As for my Filipino side, my great-grandparents moved from the Philippines over to Hawaii and had my grandfather. So then my grandfather grew up in Hawaii, and then he moved back to the Philippines where he met my grandmother and started their family there. So that's where my dad grew up, in the Philippines on the island of Cebu. And in 1971, his family moved from Cebu over to San Francisco, and they lived the rest of their lives out here. Now, some of my aunties moved back to the Philippines and kind of dispersed all over the States, so I kind of have family everywhere, but that's beside the point. Fast forward, my dad meets my mom out here in California. They moved to Colorado, and here I am. So then we move on to my story. Fast forward through my life, I'm just trying to figure out these parts of me that I felt like were there, but I couldn't reach, I couldn't touch it And I'll admit, it's a little difficult to explain because when I would ask my Filipino side, they were prideful about being Filipino, but I couldn't get any fleshed out answers. I couldn't get any in-depth information that felt like it was solid enough about this culture, this way of life that they experienced that I wanted to know more about, that I wanted to understand. And as for my Irish side, we'd been here so long in the US that whatever remnants of any traditions or practices, those have just been forgotten. For a long time, I didn't even know that I was anything other than half Filipino and half white. Like, I didn't know that there was a specific kind of white that I was linked to. It was just kind of all lumped together. And when you look into what we consider as white, there's so much diversity. There's a lot of different cultures that we all just kind of like pile into one thing. So for a long time, I was just half Filipino, half white. It wasn't half Filipino, half Irish. So this is the part that's probably gonna get a little messy and like confusing just because I am still figuring it out in my head, but bear with me. My sole intention is that I wanted and I want to understand my ancestors at their roots in their raw form before colonization. Unfortunately, that is much easier said than done because you see, the pagan practices in Ireland changed with the rise of Christianity and the arrival of St. Patrick in like 400 AD, 500 AD, something like that. And then the Spanish colonization in the Philippines in the 1500s almost completely erased the indigenous culture and the practices of the native people. So it was difficult to find any details on pre-colonized and pre-converted ways of life of these cultures, mainly my Filipino side. Asking for my family, they came from a heavily Catholic environment in the Philippines, and both sides of my family are very Christian. So basically, I was trying to understand something, and I was probably asking questions about things that were deeper than even my family could provide me answers on. Like, I wanted to know about the folklore, the indigenous folklore. I wanted to know about the gods that the natives believed created their islands. I wanted to know about what they wore and what their daily life was like. And I wanted to know the rituals that they had for birth and for marriage and for death. And I just couldn't find any answers. And then on my Irish side, we have been here so long that any Irish traditions that may have been brought over are just gone. They're just forgotten about. There was never really anything that, I can remember in my life that was like a traditional Irish thing that we had. And then even prior to arriving to the States, Ireland had been colonized by Catholicism years ago. So then, growing up in America, I often get told that I look exotic and mixed, and though rare, I have had people for some reason be surprised how well my English is, even though it's my first language. When I'm seen with my mom, I often get asked if I'm adopted because my hazel eyes, my dark hair, don't really match her blonde hair and her blue eyes. So yeah, even at times I didn't feel like I was 100% belonging in America. And we can talk about that in a different time. But it was just like those little comments that I was like, oh, huh. But those little comments, just throughout my life, are the things that kind of gave me the thought of, like, aren't my fellow Americans supposed to be the people that I identify closest with? Anyway, here I was just kind of feeling alienated on all sides, and I felt like I was an outsider looking in. I don't really fit in or have a place that is true and 100% fully puzzle fitting in any of my cultures. because my fellow Americans find me exotic looking, but I'm not dark enough, nor am I fluent in the language or the culture of the Philippines. And I'm not some porcelain beauty with a Celtic fire of a personality, so here I am. Finally, some answers. Even speaking to other Filipino Americans, it seemed like they either just didn't know or didn't really care to know about the pre-colonized self. Because you have to understand that what the colonization has done is it makes us believe that the Western ideals and beauty standards are our ideals, are our beauty standards. And so, for example, you'll find skin whitening soap in the Philippines because lighter skin is considered more beautiful than the natural dark skin, which is sad. But anyway, it wasn't actually up until last year, 2019, that I was working in a restaurant and I was serving some tables and I came across a fellow Filipina that was having her lunch, and we somehow got onto the conversation about my search, about my decolonization journey. And she lit up. Like, she demanded this pen and paper. She was like, go get me a pen and paper right now. And I was like, okay. And, I brought her something to write with, and she wrote down this list of resources because she was saying that she was in the same boat, and, she was maybe 30, 40. And so she wrote down like 6 or 7 resources of just things that she had found that had helped her. And I almost cried in the dining room. I almost started sobbing in the dining room in front of everybody. But so that was the first time that I ever felt like I met somebody who saw what I was trying to grasp, that I was trying to find. And they gave me the words to communicate what I was looking for. It felt like I've been lost looking for a way to get back home, but I never knew what my home address was. And then all of a sudden I meet this woman, and it literally felt like she was like, oh, I know where you live, and just wrote down my home address and handed it to me. And all I had to do was map it out and follow the trail. So yeah, that was cool. It was like, but now that I had some kind of starting point and I started going through the resources that she offered me, I felt like I was allowed to call myself Filipina. Now I feel very proud about being Filipina and Irish and American all at the same time. And obviously my journey is just beginning. It's nowhere close to even scratching the surface, but I will leave all of those links down below in case anybody is curious, or if you are in the same boat as I am and you happen to be Filipino or Filipina, then yeah. So where I'm at now is I am now just researching. I'm diving into resources and books and finding professors and activists and, scholars that are in the same business of keeping these traditions and these indigenous ways of life alive. Finding more about my history, both Irish and Filipino, and understanding more about the practices and the beliefs. It kind of feels like coming home. I don't really know how to explain it better than that. The whole video is basically to say that I'm at the beginning of my journey, and I would like to know yours. Maybe you were brought up immersed in your culture, immersed in your ethnicity, or maybe you're in the same boat as I am and only got breadcrumbs, and maybe you still only have breadcrumbs. Do you have any stories that maybe your family have passed down? Maybe it's, maybe it's a folklore story, or maybe it's a story about your family that has been passed down generations. This is the fun part, is where if you would like to, we can all kind of just dive into the diversity of what it is to be human. You can share in a story on Instagram or a post and use the hashtag Wonderlust Coven if you want to do it that way. You can even make a YouTube video talking about it or interviewing your family or something. You know, whatever you want to make. And also use the hashtag Wonderlust Coven, and then I should be able to find it through that way. I have forums on my website, and if that's a way that you want to share, then, you know, share it there. Provide your resources if you have any, you know, that we're here to help each other. But there is a woman who puts all of this into words very well. Her name is Leny Strobel. She's the professor of multicultural studies at Soma State University in San Francisco. I've left a few different interviews with her, both on YouTube, on video, and in podcasts down below if that's something that you're interested in. Specifically the decolonization part. That is her work, is helping others, no matter where you come from, no matter what your ethnic background is, to help you decolonize and come home. But no matter what your ethnicity background is, it's definitely worth the listen, in my opinion. So in no way, shape, or form am I saying that if you are not interested in your ethnic background or your ethnic identity, or maybe you just don't know a lot about your background, I'm not saying that's a bad thing, like at all. If this is uninteresting, that's okay too. But I know that a lot of people do like to know that they have history, that they like to know about their ancestors and the people who paved the way, you know, all those years back from where they were to where we are now, and opened those doors of opportunity and created the world that we live in now. I personally believe knowing our ancestors' history, both the successes and the mistakes that they have made, is really important, because to understand history is to have the power to shape the future. So with that, I thank you for sharing your time and your energy with me. Yeah, thanks so much for watching. And as always, best of luck. Be kind to each other. And may your gods treat you as you've treated others. Bye.